2017 has arguably been the best year for gaming so far this generation, with so many excellent titles dropping from each of the console owners as well as the major third-party studios. Players have been spoilt with the sheer amount of games to immerse themselves in. From the huge open worlds of Assassin's Creed to the intricately detailed nightmares found in Hellblade's Senua's Sacrifice, developers outdid themselves this year when it came to creating engrossing worlds for players to explore and pick apart. Consequently, with the volume of quality releases dropping over the past 12 months, there have been an equal amount of hidden details for the most hardcore fans to sift through. Packed to the brim with secrets, Easter eggs, and references to put together, just like years gone by, the volume of subtle nods towards other games, movies, TV shows, and real-world events have rewarded the most dedicated players. You might have missed them entirely, or you might have been part of the few to spot them immediately, but either way, these hidden Easter eggs are the most mind-blowing 2017 had to offer. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are the 10 best video game Easter eggs of 2017. Number 10. Classic fighting game scenes in For Honor. It's easy to forget For Honor's unique fighting game charms dropped earlier in 2017, as almost all of its player base jumped ships shortly after release. Still, despite being disappointing, the title garnered a loyal following, albeit a pretty tiny one, and the players that remain have continued to mine every level for Easter eggs, secrets, and references. One particularly cool one can be found hidden in the distance of the Sanctuary map, with the small background detail referencing a classic image from the Mortal Kombat franchise. If you position yourself correctly, you can see two fighters squaring off atop a bridge which looks suspiciously like the pit level that's shown up in multiple entries in that gory series. It's a nice nod to For Honor's violent influences, and acts as a respectful ode to one of the greats of the video game industry. Number 9. SHREK'S house can be found in Ark Survival Evolved. Somebody once told me the world was gonna roll me, but that same person also told me that if you look hard enough, you can find SHREK'S house hidden deep within the Ragnarok expansion of Ark Survival Evolved. Obscured in the jungle, if you look hard enough, you should eventually stumble across a familiar-looking shack built under the roots of a dead tree. The home of everyone's favourite ogre, the entire area is a lovingly crafted ode to the iconic movie-turned-meme, with the entirety of Shrek Swamp being explorable in the DLC. Ark as a game leaves quite a bit to be desired, but Easter eggs like this make it worth picking up. Number 8. Original trilogy characters cameo in Mass Effect Andromeda. Despite being a clean break for the Mass Effect franchise, the disappointing Andromeda still featured cameos by some beloved original trilogy characters in a seemingly otherwise uninteresting side quest. The player can catch up on what the Asari scientist was working on prior to and during the events of the original saga. In the context of the game, the population of the Arks traveling to the Andromeda Galaxy have no idea what's happening back in the Milky Way, and these relayed messages detail the tragic progress of the Reaper War. A bunch of the crewmates from the first 3 games show up to deliver heartfelt messages to the escaped population, and the eventual realization that all hope is lost is genuinely heartbreaking. Although it amounts to less than half an hour of content, these messages prove just how well realized the heroes of the previous games were, and how much the new cast paled in comparison. Number 7. Morpheus' chair in Ghost Recon Wildlands. The world of Ghost Recon Wildlands is absolutely massive, but just because the developers crafted one of the biggest sandboxes of the year doesn't mean that they skimped on packing it with a whole host of interesting little details for players to uncover. Consequently, there are plenty of Easter eggs tucked away in the title's vast open world, but it's one located in the far northwest of the map that's by far the most intriguing. A whole section of seemingly empty land, there's a gigantic area that's a never-ending ocean of sand flats. But at the heart of this desolate location lies a callback to one of the best action films of all time. Acknowledging that the area is sterile and surreal enough to evoke the never-ending construction room in the original Matrix, players can find the chair Morpheus and Neo use during the iconic expository scenes that explain just what the Matrix itself actually is. Turns out it's just a pretty bland location in an average open-world shooter. Who'd have thunk? Number 6. Georgie's boat can be found in Little Nightmares. Released earlier last year, Little Nightmares was an enjoyable indie platformer inspired by classic surreal horror films as much as it was other titles in the genre like Limbo and Inside. But its DLC, The Hideaway, took these cinematic influences to the next level. In the main game, players could find a paper plane hidden in the darkness of a sewer. However, in the DLC, released close to the time Stephen King's It was about to hit theaters, the toy is replaced with a homemade paper boat. The fact that this item is hidden in the darkness and found right next to a sewer entrance seems to suggest a link between the game and Georgie's untimely death at the start of the horror film, even if it's not explicitly stated. Likewise, there are a few other references to it to be found throughout Little Nightmares and its promotional material, primarily the yellow raincoat worn by Six in the base game, so it's almost nailed on that this hidden board is a reference to the runaway horror hit. Number 5. Horizon Zero Dawn's Death Stranding quest. Slightly more than just an Easter egg, there's an entire unmarked quest in Horizon Zero Dawn linked to Hideo Kojima's upcoming Death Stranding. Cropping up during multiple points in the main campaign as well as side missions, the player can find a handful of items related to Kojima's game, including Norman Reedus' amulet and Del Toro's weird doll. Eventually, you can trade them all in at a vendor for a mysterious box that awards the player with even more loot boxes and a pair of socks? More than just a nod to another game in Sony's stable, the Easter egg is a great reference to the deep relationship between the two studios. It's no secret that Kojima worked closely with Guerrilla before choosing their in-house engine as the foundation of Death Stranding, and hiding these complex references in the open world acts as a respectful acknowledgement of how the two teams helped each other out. Number 4. Wolfenstein 2's in-game propaganda parodies real-life headlines. Although Wolfenstein 2's marketing campaign caused controversy in the lead up to the sequel's release for ripping on President Trump's rhetoric and promoting recreational Nazi punching, a sport everyone should be able to get behind, it was argued this overt political commentary wouldn't play a huge role in the game's actual plot. And while that's sort of true, this parodying of Trumpism and neo-Nazis is still featured in spades in the title's alternate history newspapers, diary entries, and propaganda posters. They're all great to find, but one on the nose paper is particularly humorous, directly referencing an infamous headline by Mother Jones in a write-up titled, "Meet the dapper young KKK leader with a message of hope." Number 3. Overwatch's ridiculously obscure IT crowd joke. Blizzard's seasonally themed events in Overwatch are always something to look forward to, not only due to the new skins and loot, but because of the wealth of references and Easter eggs the developers cram into each and every one of these one-off activities. The Summer Games 2017 event was no different. However, by far the most obscure reference, and probably the most obscure reference on this whole list, was found in the small print of Soldier 76's healing device. With the hero's Grillmaster 76 skin equipped, the item takes the shape of a can of Health Up, and eagle-eyed players figured out that the numbers underneath the barcode are actually a reference to a joke from the IT crowd. The reference is already limited to only the hardcore fans of old British sitcoms, but the fact that you'd never even notice it unless you were a ridiculously detail-oriented player makes this one of the most mind-blowing Easter eggs of the year. Number 2. The balloon house from Up is in Battlefield 1. While the base maps of Battlefield 1 aren't filled with too many secrets to find or references to seek out, the developers at DICE have a strong tradition of including a myriad of Easter eggs in the maps released in post-release expansions. Like previous titles then, the latest entry in the Battlefield franchise is no different, and while nods towards other big games are prevalent, such as the bonfire from Dark Souls being found just outside the combat area, it's this convolutedly triggered secret in the They Shall Not Pass DLC pack that blew players away. When spawning in on Verdun Heights, you have to first seek out 3 hidden bottles of wine and destroy them, and then 3 more Rooster Weather Vanes and shoot them too. If you hit them in the right order and look at the sky, you should be able to see Carl's floating house from the movie Up take flight. Yeah, I had a bit of a cry too. Number 1. The Nintendo Switch has a built-in game to honor Satoru Iwata. When players first got their hands on the Nintendo Switch last year, it was no surprise that a small subsection of fans dove into the guts of the system to map out the console's capabilities, and potentially discover any secrets that Nintendo may have obstructed from customers. What was a surprise though, was the heartwarming Easter egg tucked away inside the console. After tinkering with the machine, it was discovered that Golf, the first game from Nintendo's late beloved president Satoru Iwata, was built into each and every Switch on the market. Unless you're disconnected from the internet though, the only day you can activate this latent game is July the 11th, the day Iwata tragically lost his battle against cancer. Not only that, but the way you actually activate the secret title is by performing Iwata's signature Nintendo Direct hand gesture with the Joy-Cons. It's a loving tribute to one of the most beloved pioneers of the industry, and is enough to bring a tear to any player's eye. So that's our list. Let me know in the comments if you found any Easter eggs tucked away that I didn't spot. And while you're there, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and head over to whatculture.com for even more lists like this every single day. I'm Josh, and I'll catch you later.